Ever wondered how to orchestrate complex workflow in Azure automatically without writing endless code? Durable functions make it possible, and I'll show you real-world examples that are easy to follow. Come, let's get started. Durable functions in Azure are a game changer for streamlining complex workflow and making serverless applications way easier to manage. They allow you to write efficient, stateful workflow in a serverless environment, which is a huge deal for developers. In this video, we are covering a durable function and a very solid workflow that you will see, and that also in a real-world example. This is part of AZ204 video series, and we are going to cover the final part of this Azure Functions, which is the durable functions. So let's take a look at the demo and understand how exactly the workflow is being set up. Alright, let's take a look at the demo. So this is the website. I have logged in as a user like you guys. Okay, so if I go to my available slots, there are 2 slots. Let's say I would like to opt for this. So I'm saying I wanted to do this and I submit a request. So what happens is, if I go here, there was a record created, and you see this initially it is null. If I refresh, I got an orchestration instance ID that got updated. How this is happening, I will explain you. But once a record is submitted, an admin needs to get intimated. So what I have done is, it first sends an email. It sends an email, and as an admin, I should get an email here. Okay, you see this? I got an email and it's just now. So if I open this, it basically says new mentoring slot request pending approval. Let me first put this as a not in spam. It's okay. We are just using those testing endpoints. So I have an email that says that a user named TechBlock, whose user ID is this. Again, this we can modify it. Okay, this is the slot ID, and this is the purpose, and this is the actual requested on when they requested. So as an admin, I can approve or reject. Okay, now until I approve or reject for 2 days, this will be still running. Once I approve, the next idea is to update the request into this table as approved, and after that we will also send an email to the user that it's been approved. Okay, so I'm going to click on approve, and you should notice what's going to happen. You see this? It's calling an endpoint. This is an HTTP trigger function, and once we call this, the request was approved, and the next workflow is to send an email to the user, which is this one. If I go to spam, I will eventually receive, I just received it. So let me put this as not a spam. What did I receive? I received hello, this like hello TechBlock. Here are your meeting details. Your meeting request has been approved by Karthik. You will receive a calendar invite 1 day prior to it. If you remember, one of the functions that we were discussing as part of this video series was HTTP timer trigger. The timer trigger will take care of sending a meeting invite to the user automatically, but approval is what we want. Okay, once you approved, let's go and see what happens to this table. You see this? It got approved on, and everything is done. See, meeting invite email will be sent 24 hours before. Now, as a user, if I go to my request, I should be able to see that this request was approved and there's a meeting invite. If the meeting invite is not there, eventually you will get it. Email is sent, it's not even sent, but I can join the meeting invite here. If I say join, it will allow you to join the Google invite. But here's the thing. As an admin, once I approve, I can't do one more time. So if I click one more time, it will say that this is done. If I try to reject also, it will say it is done. You can't do it. So basically, this is the complex workflow that we are setting up with the durable functions. You understood? So I'll repeat one more time. A request is being opted. After that, admin gets an email. Admin can approve or reject. After that, we trigger the next workflow to update the record and send an email to the user. Okay, that is what this workflow is. So I'm going to show you the code and explain you what it is. But before I do so, we have to talk about the durable functions. So what is durable function? So a durable function, it's a special kind of Azure function that helps a long running and reliable workflow. This also keeps tracking of the progress even if something stops or restarts. And this is a great way of doing a retry or wait according to the multiple steps. And we use this durable function because the normal Azure functions can run quickly and have to end it. Only durable function can pause, wait without losing the state. It can also handle the complex processes like approval, order processing, that whatever we were discussing, and it automatically manages the timing, errors, and checkpoints. The key concepts are it's an orchestration, so it's a brain that controls the workflow. Okay, it can do a couple of small tasks, it can wait for each one to complete, it can do so many things. And how does it work? We start the orchestration, that's the workflow beginning, and we call the activities to do the task, like sending email, updating database, they're all called activities. Okay, and then it can either continue or cancel based on the event or the timeout. Finally, finishing the workflow and sending the notification. So in our case, we saw all of this approval process and denial process, how these things are done. All of those things we saw. Now let's take a look at the code. If you come to this, the very first one is slot approval orchestration. So I'm going to make it a little bit big. So we start with a function, and in this one it has to be orchestration trigger. That's very important. This is the trigger. So orchestration trigger, and that accepts a parameter called task orchestration context. Okay, so this is the signature of a method. Remember that. Now, like I explained you, what it is doing is somebody is going to trigger this workflow, which we will talk about it. Okay, somebody is going to trigger this workflow. Who is going to trigger this workflow? If you remember, whenever there is a record in this table, we saw one of the function called SQL trigger. Whenever a record is inserted into this table, an SQL trigger function we saw, right? So let's take a look at the SQL trigger function that we were talking about in one of the previous video. This is the one. So whenever a record is inserted into the table, we saw how this has been triggered. But once it is triggered, we formulate this information and we initiate the call. We call this durable client, which is this one, dot schedule new orchestration instance async. So we call this method, we name the name of the method, which is this one. We call this method and we pass some information. So this is the place who is initiating the durable function workflow. Okay, record was inserted, this one triggers a workflow. So once it triggers a workflow, it finds that ID and it saves the orchestration instance ID. So whenever a new workflow is triggered, there's an instance ID. That instance ID is what you saw here. This is the instance ID. So we save this instance ID to this particular record. Now what happens? Let's go back to orchestration flow. So the very first thing is we extract the input that was received. You remember the input here. This is the input we put into this orchestration. So we extract it. We call an activity function. See, context dot call activity async. Where is this? It is here. What it is doing? It is a function again, but it is an activity trigger. Only orchestration can trigger this. You can't invoke this. If I run this, you will know what I'm referring to. So this is a piece of function, a piece of code that does something. In this case, what it is doing, it is sending an email to the admin. So from here, we trigger the first email. If you look at this, when I'm running, you can see several functions. See, durable functions. You see this? We have these three, and we have one SQL trigger, one timer trigger, and there are three activity triggers: send email to admin, send email to the user, And there is a small activity trigger called it updates the table with the status. Okay, and this is the trigger point. This is the one which is triggered. Okay, so having said this, we don't need this. So what happens? This is triggered, and then you look at this. Once this is triggered, when it comes here, it is waiting for an external event. External event is nothing but from the email. If you remember, we were doing this one, right? Approve or reject, and that was causing this kind of a thing. These two are called approve or reject. Both are actually HTTP trigger functions. So what it is doing is, it is waiting for an action. The action name is approval response. Somebody has to raise this event. Okay, somebody has to raise this event. Who can raise this event? Someone, some function. How are we doing that? That is very important. There are two HTTP triggers. Okay, I'm going to minimize this. If you look at this admin approval endpoint, there are two HTTP triggers. You see this? One is approving, one is rejecting. Both are get endpoints. All what it wants is, it wants the instance ID. So the route is approve mentoring request / instance ID. If you look at this, this one is the function followed by rejected. And if you look at this is the instance ID 013C. Let's see if we have 013C. See? So what we are doing is, when we trigger the function, like when we trigger this one, which is an HTTP trigger, okay, it's a function level. When we trigger it, we pass the instance ID, so we receive it. Once you receive it, you are going to first check the instance ID is valid. Here, this is just a validation state. If it is like not found, it's an invalid one. Because this orchestration instance ID is very unique, as you will remember it. Okay, but if it is already finished running, then we can say nothing to run. But let's say it's a genuine call. So because we call this endpoint, we will make this kind of a response where instance ID and status is approved. So this is the one which is raising the event. You see this approval response? If I go to this, like I said, look at this. Somebody has to raise an event called approval response. So from this HTTP trigger, we are invoking this function. Once we invoke this, what will happen? Whatever was waiting here, let me put a breakpoint. Whatever was waiting here is done. Then we update the database. So we are invoking another method called update monitoring request status. Where is this? It is here. It's a piece of function. Again, this is an activity trigger function that does this work. It goes and updates the database as approved. Okay, approved or rejected, depends on what was sent. After this, the workflow is continuing and sending an email to the user. That is what you saw. So this is a workflow, but in this interesting part is this one. It will wait for 2 days till someone is going to trigger it. Okay, let's see if we can make this run in the local. All right, so very important thing is, understanding durable function is not a big deal, right? But you need to know how to debug this. So I'm going to show you how to debug this. Because I've already developed and deployed, I have to stop this process. I have to go to this function app and have to literally stop this, because even if I'm trying to debug from local, in the function I'm pointing to the same database, so it will execute everything. So I have to stop this. And this time what we are going to do is, you see this, there is no record here and the function is running. Okay, so before I do step by step, let's go to this SQL trigger and set up here. Let's put a breakpoint here. It will come here. Okay. And then this is the approval. So let's go put a breakpoint to this approval and rejection. And then go to this orchestration and put a breakpoint here. Okay. Having set all of these breakpoints, let me show you how things works. So I'm going to go to this available slots because I deleted. Okay, so I'm going to request for the first slot. Once I submit, what will happen? So I submitted. The very first thing that happened is a record inserted into this table, our Azure function, which is SQL trigger function, triggered, and it came. So when you run this code, there was a instance ID, so it immediately came here. The request jumps to that instance. So I'm going to put a breakpoint here, run it. So it's coming here. It's coming. Yeah, it's asynchronous, so it's jumping here and there. Okay, so let's put a breakpoint here and run it. I think I should run this. So what happened? It updated with an orchestration ID. Okay, so we know the orchestration ID. And what do we do is send email. So let's remove all of this breakpoint. It should have been sending an email and it is waiting for it. So if I execute F10, see, it is now running and waiting here. This line of code is not executed. Okay, so basically I should have got an email, which we will check right away. If I go to spam, see, I got an email. So this time, if we look at this, copy the link address. Yeah, so okay, so basically we have an approval and rejected. So how do we test this? Right, we need to have this URL formatted, right? So what we do is we go here. Okay, this is the URL. So I copy this. This is for approval. I copy this. Let's format this here. Okay, this is the URL, locally running one, instance ID. So I copy this instance ID. I place it here. Copy this, and let's say I hit this. What should happen? You look at this. What happened? There was an admin approval. It triggered this. This is the one which got triggered. And then it is checking all good. It is formatting, and just pay attention to this. We are raising an event called approval response. I'm going to run F5, but the moment this is run, what will happen? It will come to this one. Okay, I'm going to click F5. You see this endpoint came here because right now somebody has raised this. And if you look at this, we got the instance ID and approval that we just triggered. After that, we are going to update this. I'm going to put a breakpoint here and here, activity update request, which is here. So the next call will jump here. See, this is the workflow. What it is doing, it is finding out, and before I run the last step, you can see how the data is. Look at this, it's all in pending state. The moment I execute this, it's in approved state. So now if I run this, the final step is the email sending part. Now this will send email to the user. Alright, so this is how you test the durable function. And if you look at this, whatever we were testing, all sorts of logs are here, starting from the orchestration until the end. Sending email and all of those things are logged here. So anything that is used in the function, like here, for example, SendGrid, SQL, string, all of those things, right? Including this app-based domain. Everything is configured in the portal. If you look at this portal under the environment variable, everything is configured here. Okay. So now I go here and start this function, so everything will work when the real testing is happening. Okay, so I hope you understand this durable function orchestration. I know this is easy, at the same time it's confusing. So if you have any questions, if you did not understand a particular part, let me know in the comment section. If you like it, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and we will talk more about this maybe in a real meeting. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!